Welcome to Joy of Business with host Simone Milasas, a dynamic business leader with a difference. Simone has founded and operated many businesses from a young age and has always done business differently. Today, Simone is the worldwide coordinator of Access Consciousness and travels the world presenting Joy of Business programs using access tools and empowering people to know that they can create business in a different way and make money doing it. Simone Milasas, weekly on OMTimes Radio.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me. This is Simone Milasas on OMTimes with Joy of Business. And I have one of my favorite people in the whole entire world with me today. And I've been crying tears of gratitude today. So maybe I don't know if they're going to come up now or not, but hey, we'll see what happens. So Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness. So thank you so much, Gary, for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me, Simone. It's always good to be around you. I adore you.
Thank you. Well, this is a segment that I'm sort of working towards for my new book that I have coming out, which is called Getting Out of Debt Joyfully. And you are one of the most inspirational people I've ever come across with the way you look at money, your point of view that you've had about money, your point of view you have about money now, the place that you're always willing to change it. And, of course, you're the founder of Access Consciousness. So all of the tools that we talk about here came from you, and you assisted not only me, but hundreds of thousands of people actually change their point of view about money. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And I had to change my point of view about money in order to be able to get it.
Yeah, and that's what I want to talk to you about today, because I want to have a look at. So first of all, can you tell us a little bit about like how you grew up? What was your family life like? Did you have money, not have money? Were you educated? Like, what was that like for you?
Well, my family life, I grew up in the leave it to beaver age. Now, that's not you get laid a lot. That's you get to talk about things, but you don't get to do much. And it's like I grew up in a middle class family where when the furniture wore out, we'd get rid of that one and buy a new thing to replace it in exactly the same spot, and nothing ever changed. It was always the same. And you used your rugs until they had a line in them, and then you would exchange them for a new rug. And they wouldn't turn them around or change them or do anything with them. Everything went to the same place and stayed in the same place. And when I was growing up, my mother told me at one point, she said in front of me with somebody else, I don't think Gary will ever have money because he'll give it all away to his friends. Because I would get 50 cents a week for my allowance. Mm-hmm. And I would take it and I'd go buy my friends pie and Cokes and stuff. I mean, in those days it was really friggin' cheap. You could buy a comic book for a nickel. So it's like that gives you an idea of the difference in things. So 50 cents was a lot of money in those days. And I would get 50 cents, and I'd go and I'd spend it on getting pie and Coke for my friends as well as myself. And I was always about having a good time. And my mother said, you'll never have money unless you get more serious and don't spend all your money on other people. I went, but it's fun.
So then would you say that the general, like what was she trying to teach you at that time? Was it about more saving money?
Yeah, it was always about saving for a rainy day. But she and my father had grown up during the Depression. So from their point of view, you have to not spend money. You have to take care of what money you have. And you always cut costs as much as possible. And you never go beyond the boundary of anything. You never choose anything greater than that. Funny part about it is my father was a little bit of a gambler. So it's like in 1942 when I was born, we lived in a place called Pacific Beach in San Diego, and right up the roadway was a little village called La Jolla, which is now one of the most expensive areas of San Diego. And my dad had a chance to buy a square block in what is now downtown La Jolla for $600, and they had $600 in their savings, and my mother wouldn't let them do it. And my mother was always saying, no, you have to wait until we have more money. It's like, and it was always about waiting for everything. And she believed you needed to wait before you create.
Which is funny because you actually have a telecall coming up, Gary, called Don't Wait, Create.
Don't Wait, Create.
and that's the one thing that you've always taught me as well. And interesting enough, my father was very similar. He went into a lot of different businesses and he dealt with a lot of different things. And my mother was always the one who was like, Leon, slow down. You need to slow down. You need to save. You need to be, safe. It's like this safety with money. So would you say, a typical dinner time at the Douglas house, and it's like, were you actually allowed to talk about money at the dinner table? Was it ever about creation?
No, you can't talk about money. That's crap. And it's like you don't talk about money. It's like the funny part about it is people who have money, their point of view, you can't talk about money because it's crude to talk about money. Why is it crap if you're poor and crude if you're rich? I don't get it.
Yeah.
It's like neither one of them is good. So it's like it was so interesting to watch my family do this. I mean, it's like my mother would make salads for us, and she would take she'd put a piece of lettuce on the bottom of the plate, and then she'd put a piece of pineapple circle in it. But she'd cut a little tiny piece out of each circle and squeeze them together, and then she'd put a dollop of mayonnaise in it, and then she'd shred some cheese on top of that, and that was our salad. And she would get a little can that had 3 slices of pineapple and then make 4 salads out of it by taking a piece out of the other 3 in order to make sure we had 4 salads so that we had something to eat. And it's like, I kept going, why? And then she would feed me things like broccoli, and I'd go, but I don't want it. She said, there are starving Chinese children. You eat every bite. I go, can I send it to them? I got whooped for that one.
Yeah, we got Indian kids. Growing up in Australia, it was always the Indian kids were starving. And I remember one day my brother actually said to my mum, name 2, when she said, these kids are starving in India. I was like, oh, cheeky David. Getting in trouble for that. So one of the other things I wanted to ask you too was when you were growing up and you were surrounded by this energy of saying playing it safe. Like you said, your parents just came, lived through the Depression, which I know my dad escaped during World War II from Lithuania, and it was the most important things to him were about education and finance. Like that was very prevalent in his world, that his kids are financially stable and they actually are educated. So with all of this going on around you, can you tell me, is there any way that you brought into their point of view, or did you always know you were different? Like, what was that like for you?
Well, it's like one of the things that is always interesting is we go around and, at Christmas time, we go out to the rich people section of town and look at their beautiful Christmas trees because they would have picture windows and stuff, and they'd have these fabulous trees in them. And we'd go around and look at today, you'd go out and look at the lights people put on their houses. But it's like, you go, wow, that's amazing that they can do that. And, I said, can we have a tree like that? Can we have a house like that? And they go, no, honey. It's like those rich people aren't happy anyway. I thought in my head, can I try it?
Can I give it a shot?
Yeah.
So was then the general consensus that, when you grew up, that, that happiness, it wasn't about having money? And
money didn't bring happiness. My mother said, money doesn't buy happiness. I said, what does it buy?
Because I would like to try it out.
Yeah, I'd like to find out what I can buy. And she would say, you can't afford it, you can't afford it, you can't afford it. I mean, everything was about what we couldn't afford. It wasn't about what we could afford. And for entertainment, because my parents were so poor, entertainment was going out and looking at rich houses on Saturdays and Sundays, open houses. I'd walk in down, oh, I love this house. Can we have this one? No. I love this house. Can we have this one? No. I love this house. Can we? No. Why are we looking at these things?
Right, if you're not actually willing to create it.
Yeah, if you can't have it, why are you looking at it? And my point of view became, it's like, why look at what you can't have unless you can figure out a way to have it?
So where did you get, Gary, that you started to have, or were you born with it, your own point of view around money? Like, where did you start to change your point of view around money and know that you were different?
Well, number one, I realized I don't want to live like this. And it's like, and I had a rich aunt, and she lived in Santa Barbara, and we used to go and visit her. And she had fine china, and she had crystal glasses, and she had sterling silver flatware. And all of this was like normal for her. And she would go, it's like instead of going to the store and buying some pastries that were, like $1.79, she'd go to a bakery and get, 6 pastries for $6. And I would go, oh my God, I want to live like that. And it's like, and she listened to opera and she did all that kind of stuff. And I went, you know what? I want to have this kind of life. This is the way I want to live. I want to have beautiful music. I want to have beautiful places I live in. I want to have beautiful things to eat off. I want to have beautiful furniture. And it's like, in my family, it's like, if it weren't utilitarian, you didn't need it.
Right, so if it's not broke, don't go buy another one.
Yeah, don't go buy another one. And it's like, I was always startled at the things my parents would not ever be willing to spend money on. And, it's like we would go to in those days they used to have double feature movies.
Oh, actually, I remember that, Gary.
Do you really?
Yeah, when I was a kid, too.
That's funny, because I thought I had grown up in the dark ages when they had double features. Yeah. So I thought it was
at
funny.
drive-thrus, actually. We used to go to drive-thrus.
Drive-in?
Yeah, drive-in.
Wow.
Yeah, when I was a kid.
Yeah, we never went to a drive-in because that was low class.
Oh.
What? It was just crazy stuff. But I would go to the movies they would send me to the movies for 25 cents, and that was babysitting for them so they could have a good time without me. And they would send me with my little sister to go to a movie by myself. And it would be a double feature cowboy western thing with a thing about the Cisco Kid and, riding off into the sunset with your princess or whatever. And I used to go and I was only allowed to have the two of us could have one little bag of popcorn and one little Coke to drink because that's all we could afford.
In 2 features, 2 movies?
Yeah. It was so long to not eat, not drink, not do anything. And we didn't get that. For special treats, we'd get an extra 10 cents so that we could buy junior mints once a month.
Wow. And it's so interesting, Gary, because I've known you now for, I think, about 15, 16 years. And the way I see that you are with money and the generosity of spirit, which I do get that when your mother, mentioned that you would never have money, it was more about the generosity of spirit that you function from. And I see how much that actually creates in the world from the way you are like that. And you never, I've watched you with your kids, your grandchild, Xander. It's like you'll always gift them anything you possibly can. You'll always gift me anything you possibly can. You have no limits with that. So we're about to go off to a break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask Gary about his point of view on generosity of spirit and where sort of he discovered that was actually him and it wasn't a wrongness that he was being so generous with other people. Because I know my dad was like that my whole entire life too. And he was always pulled back for being so generous. And yet that is what I saw, what actually gifted him too. So we'll be off on a break and we'll be back really soon. Don't go away because we're not. You're with Simone Milasas and the founder of Access Consciousness, Gary Douglas, on Joy of Business.
What if every moment of every day you had more choice, more tools, more allowance of you? What if joy was your priority? If this is the kind of life you would like to create, you can join Simone Milasas on the Adventure of Living series, a worldwide telecall where every month you can explore different topics using the Access Consciousness tools and processes to change any area of your life you think is not working for you. Business, money, parenting, bodies, relationships, the list goes on. And what if it did not have to? If your life was the adventure of living, what would you create it as? For more information and to sign up, go to accesstheadventureofliving.com.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. You're Simone Milasas on Joy of Business radio show on OMTimes with Gary Douglas. And we're talking about money. Now, Gary, generosity of spirit, how important do you see generosity of spirit for someone to actually create more money in their lives, or what effect does that have?
Well, one of the things I noticed is when I gave my friends the pie and the Coke, it's like what I noticed is, probably because of the sugar, they got happier, number one. But number two, they always then would give me things that they had at their house that they thought I might like. And it's like at the time I was totally in love with comic books. So they would always give me the comic books that they had already read. They would give them to me. So I didn't have to spend money on the comic books. I would still get the comic books, but I would give them pie and they would give me comic books, and I ended up getting more comic books than I would have gotten if I had spent all my money instead of spending it on pie.
So one of the things that you talk about in Access, Gary, is the difference between giving and taking and gifting and receiving as an Access tool. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's like one of the things that I noticed is it's like if you truly gift something and you don't have any expectation of anything, then things come to you from odd places and other ways. One of the things I noticed when I gave my friends that pie, it's like I would get things from them, but I would also get gifts from other people. I mean, I had neighbors. Granted, I was probably really cute, which I was, but it's like the neighbors would give me special gifts all the time. I would do things for them, like like if they'd send mail to our house instead of theirs, I'd take it to them, things like that. But it's like they were always giving me little gifts because I was so generous with my time, my energy, and my smiles. And it's like that's all I had to give in those days. I was a little kid, but I was like, 8, 9 years old. It's like you don't have much to give but that. And so, but if you gave what you gave because it's what you had to give, people would give more to you than you got by not doing it. And I began to realize, there's something else other than my parents' point of view. And I saw them the only time I saw my father where he was always generous is when he saw somebody who didn't have enough to eat. He would always give them food, even though we functioned as though we had no food. But in our house, there was always a dessert. There was always, meat, potatoes, and a salad and a dessert. And it's like you got that every meal. And my mother had grown up in a farm, so that was her perspective about life. My father had grown up where his father had left his mother, and he went out with a gun. He found a way to buy a .22, and he took that gun and he went out and shot rabbits to feed his entire family. And his father had left his wife and 6 kids to fend for themselves. And so he hated his father, and he went out and worked himself to death, basically. And he did that so that we would not have to do without food, that we would not have to suffer. And I thought it was quite amazing because my uncle went to college, my aunt went to college, but my dad never did. But he was so busy feeding the family, he never studied. He was exhausted at the end of the day. He was a great athlete and did really good and that kind of stuff. But he never learned how to create money. And his father, the only thing he got was the awareness that you have to take care of your family and you have to feed people. And that was the sum total of his point of view about money. So it's like I sort of came away with that point of view. And when I had a family, that's what I wanted to do most. But I also realized that, wait a minute, I managed to create more money by being willing to be generous. And I watched him be generous with people that had nothing and watched them come back to him with a gift of kindness and caring and loving that I didn't see other places. My parents were really quite remarkable. I'm really chuffed, as they say in Australia. I'm really pleased by the fact that I got to have them as parents. My mother was kind. My father was kind. They didn't do any terrible stuff to us. They didn't beat us. I think I got whipped 3 times in my life. But it's like they tried to take care of us, and they tried to do the best they could for us, and they wanted us to have a good life. And that's the one thing I realized that few people recognize about their parents. They look at what their parents didn't give them, and they don't look at what their parents did give them. And I really got that my parents were doing the best they could with what they had. But when I went to my aunt's house, I went, I'm going to live like this. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to live like this.
So thank you for that, Gary. And it's really nice to actually hear you talk about your family like that too, and that you did have a great family and a nice, kind family. And one of the things I see is people continuously buy into their parents, grandparents, whoever they were brought up with. They're buying into their point of view around money rather than actually asking some questions about what would their reality be, like what would their financial reality be. So for anyone out there listening to this show, because I can see how you sort of embraced what they gifted you, and yet you still created your own point of view. You still created your own perspective around money.
Well, I started asking questions early on. How come I can't have that?
Why?
My mother used to say, could you please stop asking questions? I said, okay. Why can't we? It's like I could be quiet for about 10 and a half seconds.
So nothing's changed then?
Nothing's changed now. I'm still that way. But it's like I'm always asking questions. And I was always asking questions then because I looked at things and I went, why is this the way it is? It's like I watched my friends say, well, you can't have that and you can't do that. And I go, why? And they go, well, because you can't. Why not? It's like all I have to do is do this, and I've done it. Yeah, but you can't do that. Why not? And it's like I questioned, it's like I grew up in the time when you question authority was big.
Right.
But I had grown up in a bigger time when I questioned everything.
I like that. So what are some of the pragmatic, practical tools that you could give someone listening to start to, yes, asking questions, and it's like any questions, favorite questions or tools to start creating their own perspective around money?
Well, I think one of the first ones I came up with for myself when I was a kid was, okay, what am I going to have to do to get the money I need? And it's like, and I started asking that, and it's like the only thing I can think is that my parents must have tried to instill in me a work ethic because they both worked constantly.
Right.
So it's like they must have, and so it's like I said, okay, so what can I do to make money? And it was like, okay, so you can mow lawns. I wasn't very big. I was a skinny, scrawny kid. And I wasn't very big, and I would go mow lawns. And I'd go ask the neighbors, can I mow your lawn? And they go, sure. How much are you going to charge me? Whatever you want to pay me. And some would pay me $1, and some would pay me 50 cents. And I figured, oh, great, I got 50 cents. Yay, I got $1. I was never looking at what I should have got. I never, it's like I didn't have that conclusionary reality that most people go to. It's like, I should have made more. I should have gotten more. I need more. I went, okay, I've got this. Now what?
So more coming from the place of gratitude.
Yeah. And it's like I was grateful for the fact that I got things. And I noticed that gratitude when I gave my friends pie. There was a gratitude in it that contributed energy to me and my body that I didn't feel other times. And I didn't feel that when I saw people working and doing things, and I really wanted them.
It reminds me of a story with my dad when he tried for so many years to gift me money, and all he desired to do was gift me money. And I would be this petulant, hands on hips. No, I don't need your money. I can do it on my own. Like I don't need to take that is what I thought. And the one day that I finally said to Dad, okay, and I received a bunch of money from him, I watched his entire body just relax. And there was this calmness that went over it. And I realized how unkind I had been for not allowing him to gift to me. Like, there was that true place of gifting and receiving. And it allowed him to have more and be more and expand, and it made him so happy that his daughter was finally receiving from him as well. So I get the gifting and receiving thing. The other thing that you have spoken about, you mentioned previously, and I'd love to get your sort of thoughts on this too, and when it first started occurring for you, is you talk about using money to expand people's realities. So when did you first sort of come to that, awareness of that as well?
Well, that was actually much later in my life, because it's like I'd literally gone through the period of it's like I'm a hippie and I don't have any money to, okay, I'm going to be a drug dealer and I'm going to have money. So I grew pot. So I had lots of money, but that didn't make me happy either. And it's like, and I noticed that the people that I knew who had done a lot of drugs ended up in jail. I went, I don't want to go there. So I think I'll stop this. And I worked for people and I did everything I could to do right and do everything right. And whenever I was generous in a strange way, something magnificent would happen in my life. I remember I was in my 20s and I went to work for this riding school, and I was riding horses, and there was a lady there who had she was rich as God, and she had a beautiful thoroughbred horse that she showed, and she was elegant all the time and drove a really nice car and all that. And I made $5 a day plus room and board. And so she was out in front of her stall of her horse, sitting on a tax box crying. I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "I'm broke. I have no money. I'm so out of money. I don't know what I'm going to do." I said, "Well, can I take you out to dinner?" So I took her out to dinner, and we're sitting there at dinner, and the dinner is $25, 5 days' work for me. And she gets up to go to the bathroom, and her checkbook falls out of her purse onto the ground, and it's open. And it shows that she has $47,000 in her checking account.
And when we come back from the break, we're going to find out what happened next to that story. We're going to leave you on a cliffhanger. That's what we're doing right now, ladies and gentlemen. Cliffhanger with Gary Douglas and Simone Milasas on Joy of Business. So you can't go away now. You're going to find out what happens next.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Radio Namaste leads you down the yellow brick road into portals of consciousness with the blue-collar goddess as your host. Interviews with humans who could be famous or just popular, and answers to everything are on the agenda. Tune into OMTimes Radio and drop in on Thursdays at 3 Eastern. It's a different brand of enlightenment.
Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
What if there were an easy way to let go of all the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that keep you stuck in your head without any effort? Join the founder of Access Consciousness, Gary Douglas, and co-creator, Dr. Dane Heer, for a one-of-a-kind global class to learn the bars, a process that effortlessly and easily releases the electromagnetic charge of what holds the thoughts, feelings, and emotions in your body. Participate live in Houston, Texas, or via livestream on October 7th. Access bars have helped tens of thousands of people change many aspects of their life. Are you ready for a brain reset? Visit globalbars.com.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Welcome back. We're off the cliffhanger. We're with Gary Douglas and Simone Milasas. Well, how many people get like that, though, about money? They stress about it. They freak out about it. They make it significant, and it doesn't have to be, which sort of sounds like, so this woman's purse fell on the floor. It fell open, and she had a checkbook. she had $47,000 in there. What happened next, Gary?
I went, holy shit. And I went, wait a minute. Her idea of broke is less than $50,000. And it's like after a while we had a conversation. I said, so I saw your checkbook. It's like, so what makes you think you're broke? Anytime I'm under $50,000, I know I'm broke. I have to have $50,000 or I'm broke. I went, oh, that's cool. And it's like, and I realized for me, if I was negative $100, I was broke.
So everybody has a different perspective.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things, your book, Money Isn't the Problem, You Are, which I absolutely love the name of that book. You and Dr. Dane here wrote it.
Yeah.
And it actually came from some classes that you did in Australia, which when I listened to those classes, I remember sitting in the audience listening to both you and Dane talk about access tools, and I was like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. You know, this is for everybody else, but it's not for me. I could never possibly change anything. And I was $187,000 in debt at the time. And I remember listening to the tools and I was like, oh, man, what if I just tried this? What if I just gave it a shot? What's the worst thing that can happen? That I end up in more debt? And that book that you wrote that you can get on accessconsciousness.com, you can also get through Amazon, Money Isn't the Problem, You Are. All of those tools in that book literally got me out of debt because I started to change my point of view around money, which is one thing I see is so imperative that you need to change your point of view. You need to change how you look at money, how you be with money, how you start to educate yourself about money.
Well, that was the most important part is what I realized is it's like here I am with this lady who has $47,000, and a $20,000 horse, and I can barely afford, it's like I have to live in one room of a clubhouse at a place so I get $5 a day. But I was doing what I loved. And I realized she was spending lots of money to do what she loved. I was making little money to do what I loved. And okay, so what would it take to have a different reality? I started the question then of what would it take to have a different reality? Because I don't want to be like her where I'm creating my money so I can spend lots of money to have fun. I want to have fun, but I'd like to make some money at it, not just sort of pay with my life to have fun and earn some money. And that's when things started to change for me. At that point, I went, okay, you know what, this has to change. And that's the one thing I think you have to do is look at your situation and go, okay, enough. This has to change. And just taking that one stand for yourself, because that's what it is, taking a stand for yourself. Just taking that point of view. And that's what you did when you said, enough, I'm getting out of this debt. It's like you take a stand for yourself, and then the world starts to adjust itself to what you need. It's remarkable.
So I've heard you talk about that, and I've also received it and perceived that over the past 16 years when you say the world starts to adjust itself. And it's one of the things I probably heard at the beginning and went, I have no idea what he's talking about. So anybody listening now, what can you talk about that with the world starts to adjust themselves?
Well, I mean, like one of the things that was interesting is just recently we bought a ranch. And so Dr. Dane and I bought a ranch. And it's like we decided, I went to Japan and I ate Kobe beef for the first time. I went, oh, I can have more of this. How do I get more of this? And then somebody said, well, that's, that they only make that certain kind of beef. And it's like it was grown only in Japan for years. And then mad cow disease kind of wiped it out. So they had to import, their cows back into that they had sold to other countries. And they said then most of their cows went to Australia and then they bought them back. I went, well, I wonder if I could get those in America. So I had a friend go online, and he found a place in America where he could find them, and he found 7 cows for me. And I went, wow, I love having these cows. These are so pretty, and they're beautiful black cows, and they are kind and gentle. They're just amazing critters. I mean, I kind of hate to eat them.
All I can think about is yummy.
Yes, I know. That's pretty much what I think about this. But it's like what so I had this guy go out and buy these cows. And then 5 days later, he called me in and says, I just found 7 of these cows. I just bought 7. 7 cows, 7 more cows for only $6,500. And I went, that's less than $1,000 a cow. I said, I'll take them.
So you just So what I see with that, though, too, Gary, is you continuously create. You're not actually looking about the riches or the wealth it's creating. You're looking at what you can create.
Yeah. And I figure, worst case scenario, I can eat for 8 years.
Exactly.
I got 8 years of beef on that up.
So can you talk a little bit more about the difference between, because I see a lot of people don't think that they can have riches. They don't think that they can have wealth. I've heard you talk about, you had to live in a very small bedroom with your son and need nothing but cornflakes for a month.
It wasn't a bedroom.
Oh, it was a closet.
I lived in a closet, literally in somebody's house, with my son sleeping next to me on not a rubber mat, but a foam mat. And that, it's like, and my clothes were hung in one end, and I lived in the other end, and I had no money, and all I could afford was cornflakes and milk, because that's all my kid would eat at the time anyway. So that was kind of working. And it's like, but when you can only have cornflakes and milk, and I was paying $50 a week to live in these people's closets.
And then what sort of demands did you make for yourself?
I went, you know what? No, I'm not going to live like this again. Not ever again. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to make money. I'm going to get money. And right after that, somebody that I knew, I had always loved antiques, but I went to their antique shop to sell something that I had. And I said, wow, your shop has great stuff, but you could really use some reorganization. And then the woman looked at me and goes, you know anybody can do it? And I said, yeah, I can. Good. How much do you charge? $25 an hour? I was like, that was way more than I was earning at the time, so yeah, why not? And she said, I'll pay you $35 if you do a good job. Done. So I went in and rearranged her shop, and the next day she sold like 5 things that had been in her shop for 2 years, and about 2 people who'd been in her shop numerous times in the 2 years. She said, oh, is that new? She said, yes. And they said, oh, I think that will be perfect for my house. And they took them home. It's like, and the thing I learned about advertising is you need to move things around so people see them different. Because a different light will create a different effect on them. And, it's like, and if you look at your life that way, what do I have to move around in my life to create more? To create, to sell myself better, to create more money, to have more possibility in life. And it's really quite amazing to see the way it happens when you finally start to ask those questions of how can I arrange myself and my life so that I appear different to different people who are then going to want to purchase what I have to offer and listen to what I have to say.
So again, that's like changing your point of view around money continuously and also doing what you love. Like you love to work with antiques. It's like you probably would have done that job for free.
Well, I had done it for free, which is why I knew I could do it.
Right. So let me ask you a question too, because throughout your life, it's like then you've obviously had different amounts of money that you've earned. Is there, and I see a lot of people sort of go, oh, I have my house now, tick, and tick that box. Or I have a car, and they tick that box, and then they seem to stop creating. But what can you tell people, or what tools could you give people in order for them to not have that limit?
Well, the main thing is it's like you've got to look at whether you have a goal or a target. See, the one thing I found long ago is that the word goal means a jail. So it's like if you make a goal and you achieve it and you don't acknowledge it, then what happens is you go backwards in order to be able to achieve the goal you think you haven't achieved. So I went, wait a minute, I'm not going to do goals. I'm going to do targets. So I would make a target, and as soon as I achieved the target, I could always shoot another arrow and get, bullseye again. And for me, I went, I want to be able to constantly change. Changing is the thing that's most important for me in life. And without change, there is no creation. You really want to create your life, start changing.
And with that change is what I notice is when you are in a continuous place of change, the money shows up.
I know.
Wealth shows up. Yeah. So just before we go off to the next break, we've got 2 more minutes here. Can you give an explanation of how you see the difference between wealth and riches?
Wealth is accumulating those things that other people would buy from you for some amount of money. Riches is when you have enough to spend anything you want. And it's like if you really want to have wealth, you want to surround yourself by things that will be worth more no matter what. If you want riches, then you want just enough to be able to spend and buy what you've decided you want. And everybody I know who's gone for riches, they buy all these things and then suddenly they have no desire for more because they're not actually trying to create wealth, they're trying to create riches. And it's like once you recognize, wait a minute, wealth includes things that are valuable to others. What is valuable to another is that they would pay you money for it. And when you have that in your life, then everywhere you walk, everything you do is about the wealth of life, not about the riches of what you can spend.
So it's making life not about money. It's actually making it about what we've been talking, like the generosity of spirit, the creativeness, the willingness to receive, the willingness to gift.
And allowing yourself to be generous to you. Because most of us are not generous to ourselves. Whenever you judge yourself, you're not being generous to you. Whenever you see you as wrong in some respect, you're not being generous to you. You'll want to be generous to you, and it's not about how much money you spend on yourself. It's about how well you take care of you.
So you hit a nail on the head with me today, actually, because I woke up this morning with that. I looked at Brendan, my partner, and I was talking about a couple of things, and I said, you know what, I have to start being kinder to myself. And the kinder to myself was literally about I have to stop getting out of judgment of any situation in my life. And I'm always so willing to give to someone else or be available for someone else. And it's like, where am I in the computation and the not judging myself anymore? So you might want to start that, ladies and gentlemen. What if you even just started today of coming out of judgment of what you haven't created and start being grateful and acknowledging what you have created? Because from that, anything is possible. So we are going off to another break, and we'll be back very soon with Gary Douglas and myself, Simone Milasas, on Joy of Business, and you're on OMTimes. And in the meantime, if you want to check out any of our websites, accessconsciousness.com or accessjoyofbusiness.com. And we've got lots of classes, lots of products, lots of stuff happening. Go buy. Money isn't the problem, you are, book. And you'll change your life with money.
What does it take to create a great relationship? Simone Milasas and her partner of 6 adventurous years, Brendan Watt, are offering a one-of-a-kind teleclass with pragmatic tips and practices for creating conscious relationships. What if you and your partner could thrive and create greater in the world together? This teleclass asks you the question you may not have asked yourself. Do you even really want a relationship? And if so, how can you create it? Learn more and purchase the class at accessjoyofbusiness.com/relationship. Start using the tips from this class today and start creating more conscious relationships. accessjoyofbusiness.com/relationship.
As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business. Join Elliot Jolish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jolish Hour, as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jolish Hour. Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Here is Simone Milasas and Gary Douglas, the wonderful, amazing Gary Douglas, founder of Access Consciousness, I am so incredibly grateful. I mean, I know if you've been listening to my show, you would have heard the different things that have occurred throughout my life. I don't know if I would be alive if it wasn't for Gary Douglas. He changed so much for me in the past 16 years, and the tools of Access Consciousness, I'm pretty sure I was on a road to destruction until I found them. And I was telling someone the other day, the first seminar I ever went to with Gary, I sat there and went, oh, this guy is talking about everything that I knew was possible. I just had this, this crazy concept that I wanted to grab people by the shoulders and shake them and say, don't you get that there's something else available? Don't you get that there's more to this planet than where you're currently functioning from? But I didn't have any other information. And he was the first one that I listened to that had a whole bunch of information that made it easy and had these tools and processes to be able to change any area of your life that you think is not working for you. And I remember when he said to me once about the money problem that I thought that I had, and he said it a couple of times, and when Gary says something to you a couple of times, you want to stop and listen. And I was like, hang on a second. He's saying the money problem I think I have. And I started to look at the energy of it and went, oh, I can't afford to pay for myself, Brendan, my partner, and my son Nash to fly business class all around the world. That was the money problem I thought I had. And I was like, it's not really a money problem. It's just, okay, how am I going to create this?
Yeah. And like the reality is most of us think we have a problem with something, but we don't. It's our, it's like what we invent in order to keep ourselves doing the thing that's limiting us and keeps us in the place where we belong. And that's one of the things I realized about my family is they wanted to keep themselves in the same place. They had a small house, and it's like everything was controllable. It was always about the control of it. And it's like I wanted to be a little out of control. I wanted to be doing something different. And so I started creating difference early on. And it was a very amazing change in life to realize I could have something different, and I would choose something different. And I did. And I got that you have to look at things different. And one of the things you got to do is look at what's right about this and what's right about me. I'm not getting. The other day when we were out horseback riding and somebody ran up behind your horse and your horse started to spook. And I asked you today, I said, can I give you some information about what happened then? And I said, look, you got to get, the horses have the point of view. If another horse is running up behind them, they're going to be required to run too. So they start getting ready for it. You sat there on your horse and you controlled him and he did not run off. I said, you get that's not a wrongness. That's a brilliance of ability, because most horses will try and run because the other horse is running. You didn't let him run. You got him under control. And then I was really surprised because I saw the curb chain you had on the horse, and there was nothing that was going to stop him with that curb chain the way it was.
Do you know, the funny thing about that is, Gary, I didn't know about the chain that was loose, but what I do know was it was my head in his head that stopped him. It wasn't me pulling on the reins. I got that in the nanosecond that I was like, Peregrino, please don't do this. Because there was a runaway horse first, and then when I just sort of started to calm him down, then the other guy who was chasing the runaway horse went screaming after him, and that's when I was like, no, not again. I was just like trying to pull him back.
Yeah, but you did a brilliant job, and it's like, and then you felt shaken, you felt like you were not good, and you got off. And it's like I couldn't talk to you then. I knew I had to wait. But talking to you today and watching you ride, and I could feel your trepidation about riding him as though he might do a similar thing. But I wanted you to get that you had actually done a beautiful job with that animal. The thing about horse people is they seldom ever tell you did a good job. And I was like, I really, it's like I love horses, but I'm not that fond of horse people, because most of them don't tell you anything good about what you did. They tell you what you did wrong. And I said, what was, get that was friggin' brilliant. And you sat there and you sat tight on him. You weren't going to fall. You weren't going to, nothing was going to happen. I said, and this boy loves you so much, he'll take care of you. You ask him when you get on him, take care of me, and he always does. And it's like, he adores you. I mean, he's one of the few horses I know in Costa Rica who will snuggle with anybody. Costa Rican horses do not snuggle.
Oh, no, mine does. I've taught him. And I'm convinced that he likes it when I kiss him, too. At least in my head, that's fine. But the funny thing about that, too, was, Gary, I was so grateful for you talking to me this morning on the horse, and I was crying about 4 times on the horse. And I realized that how often we don't push forward with ourselves. We don't demand more of ourselves. Instead, we get off a horse and go, that's okay.
You get off your business.
Get off your business. You stop creating money because what? You lost money? Something happened? And it's like, what? You're in, in the red, you're in minus, and it's like, so what? What if now is the time to change it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I filed bankruptcy 4 times, so I hated it, but it's like I decided enough. And the real changing point in my life for my monetary situation was when I was 55 years old, and I had to borrow money from my mother to keep from losing my house. And it's like, prior to that, I'd let my wives, run money, do everything. And I'm like, you know what? Enough. Never again am I going to have to borrow money from my mother. This is ridiculous. I'm too damn old for this to be a reality. And I've got to work, and I started creating money, and I've been creating money ever since, and it's been phenomenal. And it's like, and I will not wait. I will always create. And I was waiting for my wives, and I was waiting for my partners, and I was waiting for everybody to deliver something. I don't wait for anybody now. I get out there and do the work now for me because I honor me. And that was the thing I was trying to get across to you about your horse. You need to honor you for those gifts when you do it right. Not look at what you did wrong. Look at what you did right. Always ask what's right about me and what's right about this I'm not getting, and you will change your life with that alone.
And when you ask those questions, don't forget to use the clearing statement. Everything is that is, time to go zillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all nine shorts, boys and beyond. Because the thing is, it will take you out of your head. It will take you out of the judgments and the limitations that you have created. It was another little funny story when we were on the horses as well. We had Gary's grandson on the horse, right? And he was a bit hesitant about going on the horse as well. And he gets on the horse and he's with a phenomenal rider. Actually, I whispered to him and I said, Xander, I said, this is the best horse rider in the world. I said, but don't tell your granddad I said that. Gary is really good. But Henry is amazing as well. So he's on the horse and he was smiling big time. And then he goes, someone said something about him being happy. And he said, no, I'm not happy. And we were mucking around at the front, Dana and I talking about it, saying, oh, yeah, you can't admit you're happy that it changed instantaneously because then you can't go back. And it's like, but how many times do you do that? You sit in the poo that you create with your money problems, with your life, rather than going, oh, hang on a second, I did just change something.
You can't just change your diaper.
Exactly.
Just sitting in the poo.
Yeah, change your diaper, get a new one, create a different reality, and create your financial reality. If you were choosing your financial reality today, what would you choose? And everything it doesn't allow you to perceive, know, be, and receive that, when you destroy and uncreate it, times a godzillion,
right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyond. I will be your pod pocker official.
Oh, my goodness. I have Gary Douglas as my official pod pocker. That's very exciting. But the thing is, I've always looked at money too, even when I was in debt, I still created. And you never would have been able to tell that I didn't have money. And now that I have money, it's a very, very different energy. And just in the last couple of minutes here, can you talk about the energy that changed for you when you actually had money and have money? And what does that create for you and the planet?
Well, one of the things that happened for me is, it's like I love it down here in Costa Rica, and I have horses here, and I bought horses here, and it's like, and I got to the point where I realized that every time I was interested in the horse, it became double the money. So it's like it was always twice as expensive if I liked it. So I kept trying to get other people to buy for me, but it never worked. So I finally realized, okay, it's like, and one of the Claudia, who does a bunch of stuff for us in the Hispanic community, Claudia said to me, do you realize you're rich? I go, I'm not rich. They said, you're rich. I go, I'm not rich. I don't have millions of dollars in the bank. You're rich. I looked at it and I went, oh, I earn a lot of money. That makes me rich in other people's eyes. It's like the lady who had $47,000 and I had $5 a day. It's like her idea of rich and my idea of rich were different. Not wrong, just different. So you got to ask, what can I change here? And if I can change this, how do I create my life different?
I love that. Thank you for that question. That's brilliant. So, Gary, I am so grateful that you came on a radio show with me today. It's like, thank you for everything that you have been in my life up until now. And what I'm wondering is, what else is possible? What else can we create together, Gary?
Exactly. What else is possible? I mean, so much is occurring. Oh, my God, I'm so happy. I can hardly stand myself.
Awesome. So if you want to check out more about Gary Douglas too, you can go to his website, GaryMDouglas.com or AccessConsciousness.com. And you can also check out AccessJoyOfBusiness.com. There you go. Lots of URLs for you to play with. So thank you. Oh, you know what I just realized? We're at 1 minute. We've got one more minute to go.
We do?
Yeah, 1 more minute. What do we want to tell them in the last minute?
Go out and create. Don't wait.
And have fun with your money. What if you were going to have fun with your money today? What if you weren't holding on to it with this tight grip that you couldn't actually allow money to show up in other places?
That's a guarantee of losing it. If you hold on to it tightly enough, you will lose it because you cannot hold on to money. You can only create with money. Money is a creative force in the world, not a continuous force in the world.
Well, I'm sure glad that we had an extra minute there because you got that fabulous quote for Gary. So how does it get any better than that? So we'll see you next time. AccessJoyBusiness.com, AccessConsciousness.com, and check it out. And, don't forget, Denver, live classes, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, September. Join us. Thank you. Bye, everyone.